Hello, my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds. I'm Rosebud Reads, and welcome to my book garden. Welcome also to the White Cat's Divine Scratching Post, Book 1, Part 4. We've been moving along through this. It feels like it's been a while since we actually read this. I know it was just last week, but I don't know. Maybe it was because felt like this was a long weekend for some reason for me. But yeah, welcome back, everyone. I don't know if I actually did anything this week, but I think it was a good one. I hope everyone else had wonderful weekend as well, or at least just a relaxing one. But yeah, I'm excited to get through this today because we kind of found out that our divine cat is not the only divine animal on this mountain. And I think shenanigans are about to be afoot. But before that, so this is a stream. What that means is I will be talking to myself. I will be talking to my lovely book garden. Occasionally I'll be talking to the book. I will be making side comments. There will be a silly count of things. And occasionally I will look up something, either a picture reference of something being described, or else just for clarification, if there's a word where I'm like, I think I know what this means, but I want to clarify, or I just don't know what it means at all. It happens. But I know that this isn't everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. Some people just want to listen to a straight read through, no comments. If not, no hard feelings. This is also a mature stream. It's a 17+ stream. What that means is we will have some traumatic things come up. Potentially some triggering things, such as violence, acts against a person, mature language, gore, blood, things such as this. Now, since this is live, and for a number of these books, I've never read them before, there's only so much I can do to predict this. Usually I get an idea of, hey, this is getting a bit darker, and might say, hey, something triggering might be coming, and mark down the time. So, but if you're here for the live, there's only so much I can do. If you're here watching this later, you'll get a little more indication, because if something did happen that I believe could be triggering, you will see in the title there will be a trigger warning and or a spicy warning. Maybe just a spicy warning if things do get spicy. But it will be in the title, it will be in the description with a timestamp in the video. But as I said, if you're watching live and things start getting to a point where they start bothering you and you think it might trigger you, it's okay to just be like, hey, I'm done for tonight. Maybe I'll wait until the video's done and it's like there's timestamps, if there's timestamps, or hey, maybe it didn't go there. But it's okay to do that. I want you to do what you need to do for your mental health. We are here for a good time. And as Annika pointed out, not a straight time. But yeah, I want this to be fun for everyone and a nice chill time. And if it's not for you, it's okay to just be like, hey, I'll come back to this when I can just skip out this part, or not at all. Maybe this book isn't for you, and that's okay. There's a lot that I've already done if you want to pick from there, Or if you're just like, hey, I'm going to wait for the next series, that's also okay. But yes. Hello, Annika. Hello, Ember. And yes, indeed, this is not the place for a straight read through. You are correct. But yes. So, moving on. I am not sponsored. If I ever am sponsored, you all will be the first to know, but I don't make anything from this, nor do I own anything. The only thing I own is the physical copy over there and my time, and sometimes not even that. I am also not fluent, though I am becoming better about titles, places, things. For some reason, this book, I'm struggling with the word sanctum, but even then, I am getting better about it. But yeah, so if I am heinously murdering the pronunciation of something, let me know and I will try to correct it. But yeah, pronunciation can be hard. Hello, little potato. How are you doing? How are all of you doing? I hope well. I'm trying a different tea tonight. It said it was blueberry cobbler. It's interesting. But yes. Oh, I have some things to share that I picked up. So this is from a person on Etsy called West Witch Arts. I like their stuff. They have some really cool stuff, but they also have some really cool Ace Attorney stuff. So this was actually a freebie they gave me, but I thought it was hilarious. Thanks to you, I am saddled with unnecessary gay feelings. Because of the iconic line, thanks to you, I am saddled with unnecessary feelings. Hi, Truffle! Doing well, still hobbling a bit, but my ankle is slowly getting better. It's still bugging you, Annika? Oh, that's concerning. But I also got a keychain. It's amazing. It's double-sided. Same thing. I love the mental image of Miles. Well, I love the image of Miles and then the mental image of Phoenix. But yes, very cute. Very fast shipping, too. So that's one thing. And then also, I just kind of wanted to promote the story that one of the common Danmei artists actually created. I don't know if it was a webtoon. I think it started as a webtoon, but this is actually the illustrator Velin Shi, and it's called Daughter of a Thousand Faces, and it's actually full color. It's huge. I have not read it yet. This is probably going to be this next weekend. But the premise is from the most disappointing daughter in her family to the disciple of the world's most infamous demon. Shen Yuhua is the disgrace of her clan. She inherited none of her immortal father's powers. She's been rejected by more than 20 suitors, and her mother was executed for treason. With no one but her bumbling servant, Swallowtail, on her side, Yuhua seemed destined to live in shame and obscurity. Her world turns upside down when she encounters Chu Tian, the fearsome demon with 1,000 faces, and accidentally frees him from the abyss where her father imprisoned him decades ago. Even worse, she's forced to become his disciple. Can Yuhua finally develop powers that will make her a warrior worthy of the Shen name, or will her new teacher become her greatest downfall? So I guess this was originally published on Tapas, because this is collects episodes 1 through 20. But yeah. I love her art. She did Scum Villain, which I think you can tell from the face. But yeah, and a number of other stories. But there's that. Did anyone else do anything fun, cool? Don't go around freeing demons. It's bad for your heart. It's bad for a lot of things, honestly. Although if you take care of your heart demons, I've heard it's a good thing. Okay. I say let's just go ahead and jump into it. I don't really have anything else to add. It is surprisingly cold down here tonight, though. Maybe because it was so hot here. Anybody else suddenly get 100-degree weather this week after it was finally starting to get down to fall temperatures, or at least like manageable temperatures? Because I got to experience that today, and that was not fun. But anyway, I reading Sword and Wine, and I'm getting a bad feeling about Yao Wen Yu's fate. Yeah, no, I'm ready for fall as well. Okay. Oh, the humidity was awful. Awful. What time is it? Yeah. I loved it when I looked at my phone to check during work and it said thunderstorm should pass soon. I look outside and it's sunny and I'm like, what does that say about the humidity that it thinks it's raining? It says a lot. But anyway, let's start. Oh yes, and if there's any buffering, just let me know and I will reset the stream. The internet's been funky here tonight, so fingers crossed it's not going to be an issue, but let me know if it does become one. Okay. Oh, that sounds awesome, Truffle. Coyote versus Acme. No, that definitely sounds entertaining. I'm trying to think. So, speaking of this weekend, I know some of you saw the post I made about the thank you video for 250 plus subscribers. It moved from this Saturday to this Sunday. Same time, so same time as today, but yeah. Luchadora film, the weird local cinema. Luchadora stuff is cool. Like I never really got into it, but I respect it. Okay. So, last time we ended with there was an auction where Mo Tian Liao kind of drove up the prices on his like basically travel spear guns, like little needle artifact. He drove it up, and then the most exciting, most expensive, the crown jewel of that auction was a spirit beast. And it was a snow leopard. Yeah, a snow leopard cub. And it was bought by the buyer, dressed in azure robes, was from Qing Yun's sect. The leopard cub squeaked in terror and spat fire at the cultivator dragging him out of the cage. But another cultivator held him down and cut the cub's forehead with a dagger to extract a drop of blood essence. So it gives us a look at how a lot of the spirit beasts are treated, and it's as a commodity, as a not even as a companion, but literally as the slave. Like, I wouldn't even say pet. Pet gives it too much dignity at that point. But yeah. So of course, Mo Tian Liao walks out, and he's our cat is upset. His little pink nose sniffed Mo Tian Liao's neck over and over again. The faint scent of grass and wood dispelled the stench of blood lingering in his nose, making him feel a little better. Mo Tian Liao sighed. He regretted not leaving sooner. Seeing them cut that poor leopard cub with the dagger must have frightened Paw Paw. After a while, the cat perked up again and looked up to find concern in Mo Tian Liao's eyes. Retracting his claws, he patted Mo Tian Liao's chin softly with the pad of his paw. I know, that's how everyone treats spirit beasts. I was just lamenting it for a moment. Let's go now. Mo Tian Liao kissed the warm paw. Don't be afraid. I'll never force you to sign a blood pact. That's not what I'm talking about. His feline lordship narrowed his eyes and swatted him in the face. Do I look that timid to you? The two of them finally arrived at the storehouse, a small bamboo courtyard. Low-level cultivators occasionally came here to trade spiritual herbs they'd picked up in the mountains, while elixirist disciples at the chi refining stage examined the herbs. Okay, so he's going there to get his cat checked out. And of course, Paw Paw, which is what I'm going to call him when he's in his cat form, Paw Paw is upset and ends up messing with the elixirist's spirit beast parrot. And they have this interaction. They leave. Paw, will you let me see your divine soul? He held him up and pressed his forehead against the cat's. Meow! The cat turned his head away, refusing contact. Come on, show me. Mo Tian Liao was getting anxious. If Paw Paw was physically fine, the only explanation for his sleepiness was that his divine soul was damaged. Getting agitated, the cat scratched him, leaped to the ground, and fled. Mo Tian Liao chased after him. The mountain forest was dense. It would be extremely difficult to find such a tiny little ball of fluff if he hid among the trees. Besides, this wasn't the back mountain of Wu Qing's sanctum. Here, danger lurked everywhere. Look what we have here, said a snide voice. A chi refining cultivator with a soul beast. A burly hand grabbed the furball. I think that's the big guy, not the woman. Mo Tian Liao jumped and looked up to find the demonic sect duo he'd seen earlier at the marketplace. So that's also the people that bought his artifact. Just a reminder. My lord, the woman exclaimed in surprise when she saw Mo Tian Liao's face. The cat, furious at being caught, pushed at his assailant with all four paws. When that didn't work, he spat a mouthful of icy mist at the man's eyes. Oh! The bone-chilling icy mist turned to countless ice blades that slashed the man's face. Shumei, this isn't a soul beast, it's a spirit beast! The cultivation of a soul beast bound by a blood pact was limited to the owner's cultivation. If their master was at the chi refining stage, the soul beast could only unleash its powers up to the chi refining stage. But the attack just now had far surpassed the chi refining stage. Mo Tian Liao caught the cat as it leapt into his arms and glared coldly at the duo. How are you related to the venerable Lord Duan Tian? The woman summoned forth the magical artifact she'd won in the auction earlier. She clearly wasn't planning to let them leave unless she received an acceptable answer. Mo Tian Liao narrowed his eyes as he stroked the little creature in his arms, deciding there and then that these two people had to die. And then also the mini extra. Burly man. No blood pact! Mine, mine, mine! Female cultivator. He looks like the venerable one. Grab, grab, grab. Woodworker. How dare you touch my cat? Die, die, die! Do love those little mini extras. All right. Okay. So, chapter 19, Battle. Oh wait, hang on. Our counts. So we have a jealousy count of 2. We have cat swipes at 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 33? Hang on. 33. Petty count is at 12. And I saw Curse of the Batwoman, and it was fun. Hilariously, that was several years before anyone came up with a DC Batwoman. Make of that what you will. People might have known 300 years later. Oh, he doesn't even care. Chapter 19, Battle. Moving swiftly, Mo Tian Liao tossed the cat onto a nearby treetop and preemptively hurled 9 wooden spikes to break the woman's protective barrier before she could deploy any magical artifacts. Startled, the woman couldn't react in time. The man quickly pulled her aside to dodge the attack, and 9 wooden spikes struck the ground where they had been standing earlier. Before they could regain their footing, Mo Tian Liao threw a round wooden orb that gave off black smoke at them. The burly man summoned his blade and cleaved the orb in 2, only for 2 large vats worth of oil to gush forth and douse them both. The orb had a spatial array spell engraved in it. Mo Tian Liao had refined this oil from the oilseed trees on the back mountain. It was a highly flammable natural odor neutralizer, making it ideal for grilling mutton. I was not expecting that. I thought he had purposely made it as a weapon, but no, he's making it because he basically has a cultivation cookbook. Oh no! The woman shrieked. She was all too familiar with this move. No doubt their opponent would follow this up with an even more vicious one. She quickly formed a hand seal to create a water barrier. Sure enough, before she could even complete the seal, a fireball formed from spiritual energy hurtled toward them, but it fizzled out quickly when it hit the water barrier. This woman had dual attribute of water and fire, and a physical constitution that made her an ideal vessel for cultivation. She had once been a plaything given to Mo Tian Liao by one of the demonic sects, but she ended up being used by Mo Tian Liao as a fire stoker and water sprinkler for many years. Vessels like her progressed slowly in their cultivation, but after 300 years, she had reached the peak of the foundation establishment stage. He makes so many weird things, and I think that this counts as petty because he never heard of fighting fair. I'll take that as petty. 13. Her spiritual energy infused water could put out the fireball formed out of Mo Tian Liao's fire spiritual energy easily enough. There was a considerable gap between the spiritual energy of those at the foundation establishment stage and those at the chi refining stage. Theoretically speaking, Mo Tian Liao fighting these two was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot with its arms. But with his divine soul, he could still use certain high level spells. He just wouldn't have much spiritual energy to draw on, although killing people beyond his current level was still within his means. Also, using someone as a sprinkler. I mean, it did state that in chapter 1, all the tributes he was given were either like fire watchers or, in this case, a sprinkler. He threw 3 more small fireballs at them, but the duo successfully avoided them. Then the burly man charged at Mo Tian Liao while infusing his broadsword with earth element spiritual energy. At his level, he wasn't afraid of a mere chi refining cultivator. Mo Tian Liao stepped aside to dodge the blow, and the broadsword slammed heavily into the ground, splitting it open and sending up a billowing cloud of sand that surged toward him. Mo Tian Liao sprang up, but he didn't have enough spiritual energy to stay in the air, so when the fissure reached his feet, he rolled clumsily on the ground and used the momentum to kick a small orb into the fissure. The burly man let out a mocking laugh at the sorry attempt at acrobatics, but just as he was about to deliver a fatal blow, countless iron pellets shot forth with such tremendous force that they pierced through his protective shield and buried themselves in his flesh. I'm gonna do the mocking laugh anyway, even though it passed. The burly man screamed in pain as his spiritual energy surged violently, and he stomped heavily on the ground, cracking the earth beneath him. The 2 halves of the first orb sank into the cracks, and the earth element spiritual energy shattered them, destroying the spatial array within and unleashing an explosion of iron pellets compressed inside. And a shower of iron pellets rained down upon them. So he made it worse. Seeing the situation deteriorating, the female cultivator, hiding off to the side, pulled out the jade hairpin in her hair and transformed it into a longsword. That's cool. She drew 2 half circles with the sword to create 2 towering water pillars, sending one toward Mo Tian Liao and the other at her senior. The water slowed the momentum of the iron pellets and cleared them to the side. Meanwhile, Mo Tian Liao tapped the ground with his feet and summoned the closest tree with his wood element spiritual energy. It rose from the earth and lifted him up to evade the water. The burly man was now both enraged and bleeding from multiple pellet wounds. "The wood spikes!" he shouted to remind his junior to use their newly purchased magical artifacts. Remembering those spikes she'd drawn but not used earlier, the woman flung them at Mo Tian Liao. Propelled by water element spiritual energy, the spikes were an unstoppable force. I feel like he built something in where it was like, you can't use this against me. This is my artifact. Mo Tian Liao first formed a hand seal and drew a talisman that reduced the fire element spiritual energy in the wooden spikes. Then he spun in the air and caught 2 of them with his bare hands. The force of the power drove him back a few steps, but he steadied himself and without so much as a pause hurled the spikes back, now enveloped in a layer of green flames. The 2 demonic cultivators caught the spikes with their hands without thinking much of it. They had forgotten all about the oil on their clothes. Petty Part 14. The fabric in their hair instantly caught fire. The woman quickly summoned the stream water nearby with a water elemental spell to put out the fire, only to realize, to her horror, that water couldn't put out these flames. Yeah, green fire is pretty cool. I agree, Ruby. Also, hello, Ruby. Mo Tian Liao caught his breath and frowned. 2 more auras had appeared in the vicinity. Instead of pressing the attack, he quickly retreated to the tree Pawpaw was hiding in. If something felt off to him, he'd make a run for it with his cat. The woman burned for a long time before she realized that the water formed from spiritual energy could be used to extinguish the fire. She quickly extinguished the fire on both of them. However, forming water out of pure spiritual energy was extremely draining. The fire died down, but the woman's face had gone deathly pale. Just then, a flying sword shot out of nowhere and pierced through the woman's back. I was not expecting that. The woman's eyes widened and she looked back in disbelief. Two cultivators in azure robes stepped out. One raised his hand and the flying sword returned to him. Blood gushed from her chest and she collapsed to the ground. "She may!" the burly man howled. Mo Tianliao's eyes narrowed at the sight of these two cultivators from Qingyun's sect. They had been lying in ambush for a quarter of an hour, clearly intending to wait for the two sides to weaken each other before they stepped in to collect the spoils. "My fellow cultivators," Mo Tianliao shouted out to them properly, "I'm the personal disciple of Qingtong Zanren of Wu Yun's sect. Many thanks for your help." As Mo Tianliao expected, the burly man charged at the two Qingyun sect disciples as soon as these words were out of Mo Tianliao's mouth. Mo Tianliao leaned against the trunk, quietly regulating his breathing to recover his spiritual energy. Meow. The cat climbed down from the tree and jumped onto his shoulder. Mo Tianliao turned his head to nuzzle his cheek against the furry little body. One of the two cultivators in azure was only at the chi refining stage, so he stood aside to watch the show. The other, however, could command a treasure artifact flying sword, which meant he had a divine soul, a core formation cultivator. Frowning in thought, Mo Tianliao contemplated his escape plan for when the battle ended. While core formation and formation establishment were only one stage apart, there was a whole world of difference separating a high-level cultivator from a low-level one. The power gap was huge. Those like Mo Tianliao, who could kill beyond their level, were few and far between. Most Foundation establishment cultivators would be an embarrassingly easy kill for a core formation cultivator. The chi refining cultivator, standing idly to the side, finally noticed the cat on Mo Tianliao's shoulder. His eyes lit up and he signaled to the core formation cultivator with his eyes. The appearance of these two demonic cultivators in this place is suspicious, and now they've died in Wu Yun sect territory. That does seem to be a problem, doesn't it? The core formation cultivator asked hypocritically, putting away his sword. Mo Tianliao didn't reply, tucking the cat in his robe. Then he picked up the box of wooden spikes, opened it, and made a show of counting them. "All the magical artifacts and treasures those two are carrying are yours now. I still have something else to attend to, so I shall take my leave." "Hey, wait!" The chi refining cultivator blocked Mo Tianliao's way. "I saw a white cat in your arms earlier. May I take a look at it?" He had just signed a blood pact with the spirit leopard, so his sensitivity toward spirit beasts was still heightened. He could faintly sense that the cat was a spirit beast without a blood pact. They had originally come here to pay an official visit to Wu Yun's sect. When they heard Mo Tianliao say he was an inner disciple earlier, they considered making his acquaintance and having him take them there. But that had all changed when they saw Pawpaw. A spirit beast was so valuable that even if this was Wu Yun sect's territory, killing this cultivator to snatch his spirit beast would be well worth the price. Mo Tianliao took a step back. Absolutely not. As he was still speaking, he shot over 40 wooden spikes imbued with a wisp of wood fire toward the core formation cultivator. At the same time, he lunged at the chi refining cultivator with a flaming fist and knocked him over with a punch. The core formation cultivator dodged the spikes and sprang into the air, reaching for Mo Tianliao's chest with a claw-like grasp. Grasp. Mo Tianliao tossed the cat in the air and prepared to directly receive the blow, but the cultivator suddenly switched directions, grabbing the cat and starting to run away. A sudden burst of white light flared, and the three of them instinctively shut their eyes. The next moment, the core formation cultivator violently coughed out blood and collapsed heavily to the ground. Oblivious to what had happened, Mo Tianliao turned around to see a man in flowing white robes standing gracefully in midair, his spiritual energy surging abundantly around him. With a face like sculpted jade and eyes like glass orbs, he was so impossibly beautiful it was otherworldly. Shizun. Mini extra. Woodworker. Leaving the tutorial village only to immediately face annihilation. Can it get any worse? Demonic cultivator. Bullying a newbie only for him to turn out to be an old geezer. Can it get any worse? Core formation cultivator. Robbing someone only to encounter their shizen. Can it get any worse? Shizen. How dare you bully my scratching post? Die, die, die. Yes. Ooh, you done pissed off his shizen. All right. Okay. Chapter 20. Eradicate the root of the problem. Ching Tong, Zen Ren. The core formation cultivator's face went ashen with fear as he hurriedly backed away. The spiritual energy on Tai Xuan was becoming increasingly impure these days, making it hard to cultivate to higher levels, even with the help of a soul beast. Even a nascent soul cultivator could become a sect elder. But this Wu Yun sect sanctum master was an undisputed soul transformation cultivator. Core formation was considered high level, but a cultivator at this stage was still a miserable ant in the face of a great master at the soul transformation stage. Trying to kidnap an elder of a sect is not going to go well, I think. I think you are right, Truffle. The chi refining cultivator was scared senseless too. He had seen Ching Tong when he participated in the sect's grand meet, and he knew that this elder had a terrible temper. A stumbling leopard cub had finally caught up with them, and he let out an emotional howl at the sight of the gorgeous man in midair. I guess it's The cub's cry snapped everyone back to their senses. The chi refining cultivator took a deep breath and cupped his hands to Ching Tong. Greetings, Ching Tong Zenren. My name is Shiju, the grandson of Elder Yu Song of Qing Yun sect. I'm here at my grandfather's behest to pay Wu Yun sect a visit. There was an unwritten rule in the Orthodox sects. Cultivators under the protection of elders or masters could report their protector's name when they were in danger, and fellow Orthodox cultivators would typically show them leniency or give way. If they insisted on killing them anyway, they would make an enemy of the dead cultivator's protector. This was the reason Mo Tianliao had declared his own identity earlier. Such was the hypocrisy of the Orthodox sects, and it had bred a bunch of pampered young masters. Mo Tianliao sneered. The demonic path was about survival of the fittest, where actual power reigned supreme. People who lacked skills and the ability to read the room never lived long. Ching Tong descended to the ground, his icy gaze falling upon a grime-covered Mo Tianliao. Come here. Mo Tianliao brushed the dirt off himself and walked over to bow in greeting. Shizun. His eyes, however, were searching frantically around for his missing cat. So he's your disciple. It's all a misunderstanding. We were just curious when we saw him with an unclaimed spirit beast. Regaining his composure, the core formation cultivator smiled and wiped away the blood from the corner of his mouth. With just a few words, he reframed their murder and catnapping attempt as a misunderstanding, completely denying any prior knowledge of Mo Tianliao's identity. At the same time, he was tattling on Mo Tianliao. Look, your disciple got himself a spirit beast behind your back. Maybe he even stole it from your sect. Ching Tong glanced impassively down at the chattering cultivator and raised his hand to reveal a tuft of snowy white fur inside his sleeve. That made it clear. The spirit beast wasn't Mo Tian Liao's, but Ching Tong's. The cultivator promptly shut up. Mo Tian Liao heaved a sigh of relief. Oh, his cat was safe with his master, but he stared at that fair, slender hand and at the fur right next to it. His cat was close with someone else. Did his master have his eyes on Papa too? Did he want to take him for himself? So which one will it be? Will you end yourselves, or shall I do it? Ching Tong asked in that clear, melodious voice of his, moving that hand behind his back. He Shiju froze. He'd reported his grandfather's name, and Ching Tong still wanted to kill them? Shiju is the only grandson of my master, the patriarch Yun Song. We were at fault for offending your disciple earlier. Please. Before he could finish, Ching Tong swung his hand. A massive phantom palm materialized in sync with its movement and slapped him with such force it sent him flying into the cliff wall. Tedious. Ching Tong shook his hand in disdain. Ooh, good cover. I was just wondering if he was going to get suspicious that he never saw his cat and his shizen at the same time. I think that's pretty petty as well, so 15. Mo Tianliao gulped, deciding to keep his conversations with his master brief in the future, or else he might just get slapped against a wall. That looked really painful. Please spare me. I've realized the errors of my way. I can offer these treasures to you. Realizing Ching Tong had no intent to respect Elder Yun Song, He Shiju shakily dumped out all the items in his inventory pendant. And in his panic, he even tossed over the leopard cup. Oh, Ching Tong hummed, his long lashes fluttering as his gaze shifted to the curled up, trembling cup. Very well then, but it has already signed a pact. Hearing this, He Shiju slapped himself lightly. Oh, whoops, I completely forgot. Soul beasts that had signed a blood pact couldn't sign another with someone else, and if their master died, the soul beast would die along with them. This was why Mo Tian Liao was glad he hadn't signed a blood pact with Paw Paw. Ching Tong suddenly grabbed He Shuji by the neck and locked eyes with him. He Shuji screamed, and the leopard cub's eyes began to roll back. With his powerful soul, Mo Tian Liao could see a wisp of blood-red mist flying out from the center of He Shiju's forehead and into the leopard cub's body. Ching Tong released his grip, and He Shiju slumped to the ground, unconscious. The leopard cub lay on the ground with a weak mew before closing his eyes. Meow. Ching Tong pointed to the sad ball of drab fur. Bring it with us. Mo Tian Liao hurried forward and scooped up the leopard cub. The little one was limp, and his divine soul was unstable. Pressing his forehead against the cubs, Mo Tian Liao sensed that the tenuous divine soul connection between the cub and He Shiju had been severed. It was free again. Good. Had the blood pact really been severed? Mo Tian Liao was shocked. 3 centuries ago, he had, in his boredom, thought of researching a spiritual treasure that could sever a blood pact. Theoretically, it was feasible, but a blood pact was essentially a partial exchange of divine souls between spirit beast and human. To sever the connection, one would have to cut off a part of one party's soul. It would eventually give that person brain damage. He had only made a prototype back then and never managed to refine it. Who would have thought that a spell that could sever blood packs would exist 300 years later? And yes, I agree, Trevor. Yes, they've rescued the baby. A slap to the back of his head snapped him out of his thoughts. Mo Tianliao looked up to see his master looking at him with a hint of disdain in his beautiful crystal eyes. Shizun? So messy, he said in that clear, melodious voice. Then he flicked his finger, and an ice blade shot over to impale the core formation cultivator who had just peeled himself off the cliff wall. Justice for the leopard cub! Hello, Ace. Welcome. We are just on the second chapter of what we're reading tonight, so we finished our fight with the demonic sect, then a righteous sect came up, tried to rob Mo Tianliao and steal Paw Paw, and Shizun showed up and destroyed both of those cultivators, and they also just saved the leopard cub and severed the blood pact. But yes, welcome. Very cool. Well, I hope you enjoy this. This is Donmei channel, and it's about books featuring gay Chinese men and their various adventures and such. So I hope you enjoy. So messy, he said in that clear, melodious voice. Then he flicked his finger, and an ice blade shot over to impale the core formation cultivator who had just peeled himself off the cliff wall. Mo Tianliao's eyes curved slightly in apprehension for Qing Tong's swift and decisive action. He detested the so-called righteous and benevolence that the orthodox sects preached. They demanded other people play fair, but apparently that didn't apply to them when they wanted to kill someone else for their treasures. If his master had arrived a moment later, he'd have been the one robbed of his spirit beast and impaled. Mo Tianliao looked at He Shiju, presumably effectively lobotomized, and decisively grabbed the burly demonic sect cultivator's broadsword to end his life. Letting him live would only fuel Elder Yunsong's hatred further. He might as well eliminate the problem entirely. Dusting off his hands, he hoisted the leopard cub and followed after his master. Shizun, wait for me! Give it to the sect leader. Qing Tong stopped and glanced at the leopard cub in Mo Tianliao's hands. Then, come see me in Qingning Palace. The sect leader? Mo Tianliao frowned. If the sect leader asks, tell him the truth. With that, he transformed into a brilliant streak of light and vanished over the horizon. Shizun. Mo Tianliao thought of how far he'd have to walk to get back to the mountain. At least give him a lift back, or it'd be sunset by the time he got home. Alright. Let's see. So, that was a little bit petty, not gonna lie, so we're gonna add that to our petty count, 16. But yes. In midair, Qing Tong took out a white jade bottle, tipped a heaven-grade soul-condensing pill onto his palm, and quickly swallowed it. That's not ominous. By the time Mo Tianliao returned to the sect, it was dusk. Hold on. You're saying Qing Tong severed this leopard cub's blood pact? The sect leader Tianlang Zhenren stroked the unconscious cub, pondering the news. That's right, Mo Tianliao answered honestly, following his master's instruction to explain everything. However, he omitted the part about him selling magical artifacts and explained Paw Paw Wei as a cat he'd met on the back mountain, claiming not to know he was a spirit beast. He was new to the sect, so it was only to be expected that he wouldn't recognize one, especially when he had such an unreliable master. Ooh, careful you say that, too. The sect leader said nothing. He dismissed Mo Tianliao and told him to leave the leopard cub behind. Yan Li walked in and beamed as he poked at the dirty little guy. Shizen, shouldn't this leopard cub go to Wu Qing's sanctum? Does Qing Tong even have the time to bother with him? You can have him. Stroking his beard, Tian Lang Zhenren passed the leopard cub to Yan Li, and clean up the mess from the fight. Mindful of his status as the chief disciple who was supposed to relieve the sect leader's burdens, Yan Li swallowed back the "why me again" on the tip of his tongue and smiled in agreement. It's cute that he doesn't think Tian Lang would already know. I mean, I think he figures that since Paw hasn't been claimed yet in these 300 years, that no one knows. Based just on the mentality that most cultivators have about spiritual beasts. And instantly the mine, it's going to become my spiritual beast, my beast of burden aspect. So I think that's more where his thought process is. But yeah, no, it is kind of cute. Remembering his master's instructions to go to Qingning Palace and thinking back to the disdain in Qingtong's eyes when he looked at the leopard cub, Mo Tianliao showered and changed into clean clothes before he headed to the main hall. Qingning Palace stood against the night sky with its glass lamps ablaze. From the distance it looked like a crystal palace. As he walked into the grand hall, a maidservant in white gestured for him to remain quiet. His master, who was supposed to be sitting on the couch waiting for him, was resting on a large pillow with his eyes closed, sleeping soundly. You've come at the right time, the maidservant pointed to the doors to the inner chamber. I don't dare to wake him up, but the hall is too cold. What she meant was, please wake him up and get him to return to his room to sleep. Taking in the sight of the unconscious man on the couch and then the pleading expression in the maidservant's eyes, Mo Tianliao walked over to Qingtong and crouched down. Light from the glass lamps shone upon the handsome face that looked like it was sculpted from jade, illuminating each distinct eyelash and casting a slight shadow, over them. Gently, he wrapped his arms around the sleeping beauty and picked up his master in a princess carry, much to the maidservant's shock. Cultivators had keen senses, and Mo Tianliao had initially just intended to hug him, fully prepared for his master to jolt awake and beat him up. But that didn't happen. His master remained asleep. He leaned against Mo Tianliao's chest like it was the most natural thing in the world and snuggled against it. Mo Tianliao's heart skipped a beat. Remember, he's your Shizen, he murmured to himself. He swallowed hard and made his way to the inner chamber. And thankfully, we got fed. Hey. So pretty. I love that he didn't expect it to work. Like, he expected to, like, get hit and for his master to wake up, but instead, he's princess carrying him, and he just kind of went with it. So then the mini extra woodworker, remember, he's your Shizen. Shizen, what's that about Shizen? Woodworker, think no evil, think no evil. Shizen, nuzzling against Woodworker's face. Meow. Woodworker, nosebleed. I should have become a monk instead of a cultivator. Yeah, no, now he's committed to the princess carry. And it is adorable. It's so cute. Look at him. He did nuzzle in. He's got a fancy little crown. Little jeweled crown on his head. So fancy. Both of them are so fancy right now. Like, look at that. One second. I need to check something. Okay. Where did my pen go? I just saw it. Okay. All right. Chapter 21, Cultivation. The light in the inner chamber was so dim that Mo Tianliao could barely see the furnishing. The spacious room was carpeted with light-colored curtains, making it unsteady to walk on. Mo Tianliao almost tripped as he walked inside, but he caught and steadied himself just in time. He looked down. The beautiful man in his arms was still sound asleep. Half the reason I watch C-dramas is the fancy hair things. I mean, they're also just pretty, so yes. Silently breathing a sigh of relief, Mo Tianliao looked around. There was a large, partially open window with sheer curtains that fluttered gently in the night breeze. A huge canopied bed stood in the center, its white brocade bedding faintly glowing in the moonlight. That sounds gorgeous. He walked over and gently placed the sleeping beauty on the bed. The soft breath against his neck was giving him troubling feelings. Mo Tianliao took a deep breath and hardened his heart, forcing himself to transfer the head resting against his chest to the soft pillow. Cold moonlight filtered through the sheer curtains, illuminating a face so incomparably handsome that Mo Tianliao couldn't help but take another look. His eyes trailing along the exquisite curves of his closed eyes, his thin, pale-colored lips, his perfectly contoured chin, his fair neck, and down below his collarbone. Think no evil! Mo Tianliao forcibly tore his gaze away from his tempting master and released his arms. The soft bedding quickly folded the slender man into its embrace. Mo Tianliao pulled over a thin quilt and covered Ching Tong with it, but as he turned to leave, he felt a tug on his sleeve. "Where are you going?" a clear, charming voice asked in a groggy tone. Mo Tianliao stiffly turned back toward his master, who had grabbed the end of his sleeve and was slowly opening his beautiful eyes. He lit the glass lamp by the bed and crouched at eye level with his master. I'll come back tomorrow if you're tired." Ching Tong yawned, covering his mouth with his fair hand, and lay there looking back at him. "You don't have to come tomorrow. I'll be in seclusion." Mo Tianliao understood this to mean that he should spit out whatever he had to say now and then make himself scarce, so he quickly brought up Papa. "I'd really like to have that white cat." Mo Tianliao had already confirmed with Yan Li that there was no actual rule to provide a personal disciple with a spirit beast. It all depended on whether their master was inclined to give them one or not. He couldn't lose Pawpaw, and he wasn't worried Pawpaw would refuse to go with him. His only worry, he admitted to his master, was that he might give the cat away to someone else. "That won't happen," Ching Tong said, and dismissed him with a wave. Mo Tianliao felt a weight lift off his heart at his master's answer. Seeing his sleepy eyes misting over like rainwashed obsidians, he couldn't help but ask another question as an excuse to keep looking at them. "Then how can I get that cat?" Those shimmering eyes glanced at him briefly before closing. "Depends on your performance." Mo Tianliao broke into a grin and took out a glass hairpin, the same one he had bought at the marketplace. However, he had recarved it into the drifting cloud chasing the moon design worn by men, with a hidden moon inlaid within the hollow cloud. The simple exterior also had intricate patterns that glistened in the candlelight. It was gorgeous. "I bought this from the marketplace," he said in a soft, lulling voice. "I'd like to give it to you." Not caring if his master heard him, he placed the hairpin by the pillow and blew out the light. I'm leaving now. I could take that as some phrasing. Yes, Truffle. Depends on your performance. Yes. I'm leaving now. The doors to the inner chamber closed, and the light from the crack underneath disappeared. A still silence descended in the room. Those closed eyes opened again. Ching Tong took the hairpin and brought it closer to get a look, his night vision taking in every carved detail. Pawpaw, your eyes are so beautiful. They look like light-colored glass. Look, Pawpaw, don't we look like a couple when I wear a light-colored glass hairpin? I've got too much of an intimidating vibe for glass. This kind of glass is better suited to a gorgeous knockout. Those pale lips curved into a barely perceptible smile as Ching Tong put the hairpin under his pillow and wearily closed his eyes. Mo Tian Liao didn't see the little cat on his bed when he opened his eyes the next day. Surprised, he got up and went looking for him. A few second-generation disciples in charge came to report matters and found Mo Tian Liao wandering around the courtyard. "What are you looking for?" they asked. Nothing." Mo Tian Liao looked up and waved them in. Once the complicated routine affairs were settled, Mo Tian Liao tapped 2 fingers on the table. "It's bad enough that you manage all these tedious tasks every day with no compensation, but it holds you back from cultivating, which is even worse. I've discussed it with Shizun and will be setting up a chamber of administrative affairs in Wuqing Sanctum." Establishing a chamber of administrative affairs wouldn't be hard. The sect had already had one, so they only needed to replicate that on a smaller scale. Disciples with high cultivation and good moral character could be placed on rotating duty for the positions, and they would receive an additional spiritual stone allowance during their shifts. Mo Tian Liao's workload lightened considerably once the Chamber of Administrative Affairs had been established. The disciples only bothered him occasionally when they couldn't decide on something. With his new free time, Mo Tian Liao devoted himself to cultivation. Advancement was assured now that he had ample spiritual stones. Under the guidance of the art of burning wood, Mo Tian Liao chopped down every type of spiritual tree on the back mountain. Hello, Gibranaman. Good morning, everyone. Sorry I've been absent. I couldn't connect because of time differences. Hope everyone is doing fine. I hope you are doing good too. We're doing pretty good. Went through some stuff. I don't know how current you are on White Cat, but we now have a baby leopard, spiritual beast that was given to Yanli, and now had some Shizun and Mo Tian Liao back and forth, and kind of are just cultivating. But we had some examples of what even the Orthodox sects are like, and how they'll kill and have shifting moral compasses, to put it lightly. But yeah, so now we're kind of just back in a kind of like the start of the next story arc. But yes. Advancement was now assured since he had ample spiritual stones. Under the guidance of the art of burning wood, Mo Tian Liao chopped down every type of spiritual tree on the back mountain. With an abundance of wood element spiritual energy around him and the fire element spiritual energy that was released whenever he burned wood, Mo Tian Liao's cultivation advanced rapidly. However, Mo Tian Liao looked at the delicious smelling grilled cold spring fish before him and sighed. There was rarely any sign of Pawpaw these days, and Mo Tian Liao couldn't finish all the food that the art of burning wood required him to grill. And the cold spring fish featured in this chapter was the little furball's favorite. Mo Tianliao didn't care for fish, but it would be a shame to waste this valuable cold spring fish after all the effort he had put into catching it. So he wrapped it up with a clean leaf and made his way to Qingning Palace. If the cat wasn't on the back mountain, perhaps he was with his master. Before Qingning Palace's main hall was a bamboo grove elegantly decorated with a bamboo couch, a rocking chair lined with cushions, a Wei keyboard, and the like. A beautiful man in white lay with his eyes shut on the rocking chair, surrounded by the refreshing fragrance of bamboo. Pleasant sunlight filtered through the slender bamboo stalks, shining cozily and warmly on his clothes. What does bamboo even smell like? Does it smell like grass? Grass and water? I'm trying to think. This was the idyllic sight that greeted Mo Tianliao when he approached. His master, narrowing his eyes and enjoying the warm afternoon sun that washed his white robe in gold, made him look less detached and more alluring. I mean, they say these things and how it smells, and I mean, like, I know what grass smells like, and I can picture what bamboo smells like because it's a plant. But like, it just probably like sort of grassy and woodsy and fresh. Like it smells fresh. That's what I'm getting the scent profile of. Believe in Yourself by Joseph Murphy these days. It's a book on how the power of imagination and subconscious mind can change reality. I mean, I've found that even just having a positive outlook, not even necessarily a positive attitude, but just kind of choosing to take what comes and I guess living by the phrase, it could be worse, and just being happy with what you have and can do that day, um, and realizing your situation in the scheme of things can help a lot. Um, yes. Like, I can picture what it smells like, but, like, describing that is hard. But yeah. No, that sounds like an interesting book. Debraneman. Yes. His master, narrowing his eyes and enjoying the warm afternoon sun that washed his white robes in gold, it made him look less detached and more alluring. Entranced, Mo Tian Liao walked over with the grilled fish in hand. Long lashes fluttered open and cold eyes swept over him. What is it? Ching Tong asked. I grilled a cold spring fish and thought of seeing those beautiful eyes light up at the mention of fish, Mo Tian Liao swallowed down the words, feeding the cat, and instead finished asking Shizen to try it. Ching Tong scoffed. I'm long past the need for food. Mo Tian Liao smiled and sat on a small bamboo stool beside the rocking chair. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy good food. Even after I attained inedia in my previous life, I still kept up with my meals. After all, the path of cultivation is so long. How boring would it be to even give up good food? He unwrapped the leaf as he spoke, revealing the aromatic grilled fish within. The meat of a cold spring fish was fresh and tender. When grilled over wood, imbued with an abundance of spiritual energy, it only needed a light brush of seasoning to be deliciously ready for eating. Ching Tong glanced at the appetizing fish and picked up a piece to try. How's your cultivation coming along? I'm already at level 8 of the chi refining stage, Mo Tian Liao answered honestly. In a few days, I'll be able to break through to the foundation establishment stage. Good. Ching Tong swallowed a piece of fish and lifted his chin slightly. Mo Tian Liao followed his gaze to the tea set on the table. Understanding dawned on him, and he set the fish down within his master's reach and pulled the tea table over. The orthodox sects were all about devotion and single-mindedness when it came to cultivation. Cultivation was their only interest. It was a different story for demonic cultivators who followed their hearts. The days were long when you followed the path of cultivation. Other than artifact forging, Mo Tianliao had also studied many other things, such as the tea ceremony. In his view, every sip and bite was cultivation. Increasing spiritual power was important, of course, but tempering one's mind was just as essential. Wash, brew, steep, skim, and smell. His movements were smooth and pleasing to watch as he poured the fragrant tea into the white jade cup and handed it to his master. A hand took the cup, so fair it was hard to tell where the hand ended and the cup began. But as soon as the rim of the cup touched those lips, it pulled away. Ching Tong glared at Mo Tian Liao. Are you trying to kill me with scalding tea? Mini extra. Shizen, brew me some tea. Woodworker. Sure. Shizen, give me a blanket. Woodworker. Sure. Shizen, groom my fur. Woodworker. Sure. Wait, what? Inedia always sounded like a bum deal to me. I mean, not starving is good, but think about how good food tastes. I get it. Usually it's the aspect of giving up worldly desires and um ascending past bodily needs is my belief about Inedia. It's transcending past humanly functions. You stop aging, your body basically freezes. Yes. But I'm right there with you, Truffle. I love food too much to be able to give it up. Clearly. But yeah. 112. Oh yes. Geronimon. I don't know if you follow the posts that I put on the community, but we actually reached 250 plus subscribers. So I will actually be doing a card opening stream this Sunday at the time that I normally start stream, so 8 CST, Central Standard Time. It's not going to be a super long stream, but I thought it would be cool to do something. So thought I'd just let you know. It'll be there later as well, but this one will actually be live. I know I've posted a couple similar things, but this one will be live. But yes. Chapter 22, Shixiang. Mo Tian Liao was bewildered. Is the tea not to your liking? Ignoring him, Ching Tong froze the tea with white mist from his fingertips until white crystals formed before raising the cup to drink. Wait. Mo Tian Liao grabbed his master's slightly cool hand. It was smooth and soft to the touch, and he couldn't resist sneaking in a caress. Before his master could notice, though, he took the cup away. Do you dislike it hot? Yay! Wait, Truffle, I thought you knew about the stream. Oh, did you think it wasn't live? No, it's gonna be live. But yeah. Those eyes watched him silently, making Mo Tian Liao's heart flutter. He cleared his throat and privately pinched himself, then prepared a fresh cup of tea, pouring it back and forth between two jade cups until it was lukewarm before he handed it over. This was how he prepared tea for his feline lordship when he had no frost jade bowl. Paw didn't like spring water from the mountains. He demanded tea in his cup. He would even throw a little tantrum if his tongue got scalded. Yeah, no, it's a little surprise to me too, not gonna lie. Thank you. Shizen's just like a cat. Mo Tian Liao's eyes curved as he watched those lips part slightly to drink the tea, feeling inexplicably satisfied. After he'd gained power in his previous life, Mo Tian Liao had never tried to ingratiate himself with anyone else, other than his feline lordship, who reigned supreme over all. And now, looking at this particular shizen, Mo Tian Liao couldn't help but want to make him happy. That's really sweet. Demonic cultivators followed their heart's desires. He did things because he wanted to, not because they might benefit him. What are you looking at? A smack to the back of his head snapped him out of his reverie, pitching him forward. He rubbed his head, reeling abruptly how disrespectful he'd been, staring at his master. All right, I'm counting it as a cat swipe because technically it was. So we are 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 34. I'm sorry, that was rude of me. Mo Tian Liao refilled the tea and held up the slightly cooled grilled fish, warming it with the fire element spiritual energy from his palm before offering it to his master. A tea drinking cat is so funny. My parents did have a cat that liked coffee and the dregs of red wine. She was also a cheese and milk fiend. Oh, thank you, Jabroniman. I appreciate that. I know it's a niche topic, so like I'm literally doing this because I enjoy doing it and I want to get these books out there, but I also just enjoy reading with you all. So it's nice to have more subscribers, but it's kind of just something that's happening because more people are finding the books as I read more books. But sure. I hope they enjoy. Ching Tong couldn't be bothered with this insolent disciple. He popped another piece of cold spring fish into his mouth. Disciple Yuli greets Shishu, a trembling voice said. Or I guess, okay, trembling. Disciple Yuli greets Shishu, a trembling voice said. Mo Tian Liao looked back to see a slender, nervous-looking man bowing to his master. He thought back on the names of disciples from the various sanctums. If he was right, this should be Yuli, the third personal disciple of Xuanji Zanren. Ching Tong looked up, swallowed the fish, and extended the pink tip of his tongue to lip the seasoning off his lips. Yuli trembled even harder at the sight. His two seniors were both deeply intimidated by Ching Tong, so they constantly foisted this job onto him. But had they ever considered he was the one who feared this elder the most? What is it? Ching Tong watched Yuli with interest. Yuli gulped, took a deep breath, and began to ramble without looking up. The sect leader's disciple, Mo Shixiang, and your disciple, Menghu Shixiang, have just returned to the sect. They're currently meeting the sect leader in Wutian Sanctum. He has sent me to inform you. As soon as the stream of words were out of his mouth, Yuli deflated like a balloon. All right, I've got it. Ching Tong waved him away. Looking as if he had been granted amnesty, Yuli bowed and fled. Throughout it all, he acted like he hadn't seen Mo Tian Liao nor cared that he hadn't greeted him. Mo Tian Liao watched with interest, curious why Yuli was so afraid of his master. Shall I go to Wuqing Sanctum to receive Shixiang? Mo Tian Liao volunteered when he realized that his master had no intention of going. If he wanted to live in Wuqing Sanctum peacefully while he recovered his power, he needed to get along with his senior. YouTube works on numbers. Content creators need numbers, and people also base someone's quality of ideas on the basis of numbers. It's a sad reality. True. You're not wrong. Yes. If you want, I'm just going to reread that part. If he wanted to live in Wuqing Sanctum peacefully while he recovered his powers, he'd need to get along with his senior. After all, the guy was a late-stage core formation cultivator who would soon break through to the nascent soul stage. No need. Ching Tong finished the last piece of fish and accepted a white silk handkerchief from his maidservant to wipe his hands clean. He'll be back soon. As a core formation cultivator, his senior could ride his sword across the arched bridge in no time. By the time Mo Tian Liao arrived at Wu Tian's sanctum on foot, the guy could already be back here massaging his master's legs. Scratching his head, Mo Tian Liao joined his master in lazing around. The maidservant took back the handkerchief, cleared the fish bones and the leaf wrapping, and vanished just as quickly as she arrived. I don't know why that sentence was so hard to get out. As expected, within a quarter of an hour, a tall, imposing man with a commanding presence hurried through the bamboo grove. He had even features, and his large round eyes gave him a somewhat fierce look. This was his senior, Meng Hu. Oh, goodbye, Jabroniman. I hope you and your children have a nice day. But yeah, see you soon. Shizun, Meng Hu cried out as soon as he crossed the arch bridge and found his gorgeous Shizun sitting in the rocking chair. He rushed over, fell to his knees with a thud, and kowtowed 3 times. I'm back. Mo Tian Liao quickly stood up and stepped aside. I have a feeling, like the gut feeling, this is going to be a very dramatic character. I'm hoping either this is going to be like a little. Let's just find out. I feel like I'm gonna like this character. Mo Tian Liao quickly stood up and stepped aside. Ching Tong glanced coldly at the large head at his feet and smacked him on the back of his skull. So you did remember to come back. Meng Hu rubbed the back of his head. We were held up because Mo Xiang got injured. Right, that still counts as a cat swipe, even if it's not to our boy. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. 35 cat swipes. Ching Tong looked sidelong at the grinning disciple and gestured for him to rise. Meng Hu sprang to his feet. Finally noticing Mo Tian Liao, he grabbed him and patted him hardly on his back. I'm gonna like him! He's a dude, bro! This must be the new disciple. He sure looks sturdy. The corner of Mo Tian Liao's lips twitched. Was the guy pounding him like a drum just to see if he was sturdy? Still, he looked up and flashed an affable smile. Greetings, Shixiang. I'm Mo Tian Liao. Meng Hu's eyes crinkled into a grin. He'd been waiting for over a century for a junior. This one seemed pretty docile, though. He'd have to watch over him in case the other disciples bullied him. I'm Meng Hu. We're brothers from now on. Ask if you need anything. He stuffed a small inventory pouch into Mo Tian Liao's hands as a greeting gift. Here, have fun with it. No, I instantly got himbo vibes. Meng Hu is fun. He's a total himbo, but a good dude. Mo Tian Liao took the pouch and scanned it with his divine sense. It was packed full of many rare items. Meng Hu must have collected them on his travels. Mo Tian Liao looked silently at him. This guy's expression screamed, this Gaga will protect you in the future, and he seemed a little simple-minded. Maybe Mo Tian Liao could take advantage of him. Oh, I have a feeling you totally can, my dear. This evening, Mo Tian Liao was in his courtyard drawing water to irrigate the peach tree. Now that it was fall, the peach tree was beginning to shed its leaves, and some of the smaller branches had already withered. Mo Tian Liao pinched a withered branch, intending to break it off, when a surge of wood element spiritual energy flowed from his fingertips to the branch. Raising an eyebrow, he grasped the branch and channeled wood element spiritual energy into it. He'd heard that people with a heaven attribute of wood could master a technique called spring revival. It could bring withered plants back to life, since pure wood element spiritual energy was a life force for plants. But it could only revive ordinary plants and had little effect on spiritual herbs and trees rich with spiritual energy. So the technique wasn't that useful. As he expected, the branch quickly regained vitality. Bored, Mo Tian Liao was about to retract his hand when he discovered that the branch hadn't just returned to life. It had also sprouted several tender buds. Huh? Astonished, Mo Tian Liao leaned in for a better look. Even if the plant came back to life, it shouldn't have been budding in fall. Shidi! Before he could work it out, he heard an enthusiastic voice calling out for him from behind. Slowly, he turned to see a large head peering over the tall fence. Yep, it was his new senior. Meng Hu's courtyard was right next to his. He'd known this since he moved in, but it had slipped his mind since no one had been living there until now. Oh, this is going to be great. Shixiang. Mo Tian Liao snapped the branch off and tossed the pieces to the ground before walking over to bow to him. Hey, no need for all these formalities between us. Shizun doesn't care for them either. Meng Hu waved his hand, jumped over the fence, and pulled Mo Tian Liao into the house. Come on, I've got something to discuss with you. What is it? Mo Tian Liao asked calmly, sitting down at the table. Definite big dog energy, I agree, Ruby. Shizun must have his reasons for trusting you since he took you in as his disciple, so I won't pry. Meng Hu waved the door shut and set up a protective barrier to isolate all sound within the room. Mo Tian Liao lowered his hand, secretly summoning a row of wooden spikes made of sinking agarwood between his fingers. Schooling his expression, he smiled. Feel free to speak freely, Shixiang. Mini extra. Eldest Shixiang. I have a question, Shizun. Shizun? What? Eldest Shixiang. Why was Shidi allowed to join our sect when he has no fur? Literal big dog energy. Shizun extends claw. Scratch, scratch. Eldest Shixian. Oh, a scratching post. I want one too. Shixian brandishes claws, sending him flying with a swat. From then on, Woodworker and Eldest Shixian went from being chance acquaintances to sworn friends. Ruby Bianca, yep. I love that Mo Tian Liao didn't realize he'd signed up for a big brother. Oh my god, that's amazing. Yeah. Alright, so I think he's some sort of big animal, either a dog or it kind of has given me bear energy, maybe a big bear. That or like a hamster with a big personality. That would be amazing. He could be a spirit dog, yeah. I mean, they just admitted, why was Shidi allowed to join our sect when he has no fur? Plus, that was one cat swipe. So 36. Alright, chapter 23. 28. 45. Okay. Chapter 23. 3 Mulberry. Meng Hu glanced around, then pulled out a jade box with a greenish-yellow hue. This shade of jade was associated with the wood element and was typically used to preserve spiritual herbs without elemental attributes. What's this? Mo Tian Liao didn't touch the box, looking at his senior. It's a long story. Meng Hu opened the box. This is the main reason I've been out training. It was incredibly difficult to get. Mo Xiang even got injured for it. There was a layer of ice crystals inside that released tendrils of cold air when the box was opened. In the center lay a fruit that was vividly red but unappealingly wrinkled, likely because of the long journey. But Mo Tian Liao could tell that it was mulberry condensing fruit. The three mulberry was an extremely rare divine tree with no branches. The fruit formed in the grooves of its trunk every 30 years. These fruits had the precious ability to condense the divine soul and prevent it from dissipating. What a strange fruit. What do you plan to use it for? Mo Tian Liao looked at Meng Hu, his expression betraying nothing. Oh yeah, it's pretty rare. You have no idea how much trouble I went through. It's beneficial to Shizun, so I'm thinking of offering it to him. Meng Hu still didn't mention its name or use. Mo Tian Liao's heart sunk. A complete divine soul was like a fully intact egg. It wouldn't dissipate unless it was damaged. It was like an egg. The contents were safe as long as the shell was intact, but if the shell was cracked, the egg white would gradually dry up and evaporate in the sunlight. The three mulberry soul condensing fruit basically added another layer of membrane to the divine soul, preventing further loss. It seemed his master's divine soul was damaged. For it to Shizun. After all, it's such a valuable item. Why bring it to me? Mo Tian Liao wondered. The wooden spikes remained between his fingers. Meng Hu scratched his head, stood up, paced around the room, and plopped back down. Shizun seems to dote on you, so I thought you could give it to him. Mo Tian Liao looked down and said nothing. Realizing he might have been a little abrupt, Meng Hu got up again and paced another round. He hadn't explained what this fruit was, so maybe his junior thought he was trying to sabotage him. I'll be honest, he said. This divine fruit is beneficial for the soul, but its appearance has deteriorated on the long journey. You know, Shizun, he won't eat it if it looks unappetizing. I thought we would go together, and you can help persuade him to eat it. Mo Tian Liao looked at his senior leaning over the table with wide, impatient eyes and felt the urge to bully him. There are countless spirit beasts on the back mountain. If his divine soul is unstable, Shizun could just find one of them to tame. Why, he's already has a spirit beast. Meng Hu paused. You're new to the sect, so there are things you don't understand yet. Spirit beasts can only soothe one's inner demons and agitation. They're not a cure-all.
Look at, he's got little fangs!
And also, like, slit eyes, so not subtle at all. He's adorable. I thought he would be a little more burly. Like, not gonna lie. I guess he's kind of burly compared to our boy. But, like, I guess it's a Luchinga situation. Shizun has a spirit beast? Mo Tian Liao was curious. Why hadn't he seen it? Before he could pry further, Meng Hu stood up, clearly not planning to say more, and tried to pull Mo Tian Liao along to see their master. Wait. Mo Tian Liao took the jade box and touched the wrinkled fruit with his fingertip. A weak current of wood element spiritual energy surged toward the fruit. He quickly pulled his hand back. I might have a way to make this fruit fresh again. Yeah. Really? Meng Hu's eyes lit up. This junior of his was no ordinary man. I can't be sure. Can you give me a few days? Mo Tian Liao handed the box back to Meng Hu. Sure, you keep it. Meng Hu pushed the box back to Mo Tian Liao. Just call me when you're done. With that, he withdrew the barrier and left in a hurry, like he was worried Mo Tian Liao might try to return the fruit. Mo Tian Liao didn't know what to make of this pure-hearted senior handing him such a precious item without hesitation. Wasn't he worried that Mo Tian Liao might eat it himself or damage it? He put the jade box away in his inventory bracelet. Whoa! Meng Hu, who just stepped out, exclaimed in surprise. Mo Tian Liao hurried out to find a white cat perched on the fence and his senior half crouching before the animal. Oh, you're here for Shidi too, I guessed. Meng Hu laughed nervously. Ha 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 ha. His feline lordship glanced haughtily at this dumb disciple and swatted him with a paw. 37. I should get going. Those little brats haven't seen me in a while. Who knows if they've been keeping up with their training? Meng Hu didn't even wait to finish talking before he got out of there. Paw. Mo Tian Liao walked over and picked the cat up. His senior was friendly to the cat, so it seemed like the little fluff ball had been treated well at Wu Qing's sanctum over the years. Meow. The white cat climbed into Mo Tian Liao's arms with a lazy yawn. Where have you been? I grilled some fish, but couldn't find you anywhere, so I gave it to Shizun. He kissed the soft little head and walked out with the cat in his arms. The spring revival skill he'd learned on his own must have been different from the one other cultivators practiced. Probably something having to do with his undying tree body. He would need to check the ancient texts and restore the 3 mulberry soul-condensing fruit as soon as possible. His master's damaged soul couldn't wait. A deep abyss lay between Wu Qing's sanctum and the arched bridge. To get across, he'd have to fly. But he didn't have enough spiritual energy for it, as he hadn't established his foundation, so he couldn't ride his sword over. Usually, he'd depend on his master or the second-generation disciples to help him get across, but that was rather inconvenient. Recently, Mo Tian Liao had crafted a small flying ship, hardly large enough to be called a ship, really, that could fly if equipped with a spiritual stone. It was simply made, only the size of a plate, and could only travel a few yards, but it would be enough to cross this natural chasm. It's a small chasm. It's only a few yards. That's like what, 9, 12 feet? Like, I mean, you can't jump, but with cultivators, you'd think they'd be able to leap that. He took out the oddly shaped plate, stepped onto it, and inserted a low-grade spiritual stone. The plate slowly rose. The ability to control a flying sword or flying ship depended on having sufficient spiritual energy and a divine soul. Flying swords relied purely on the cultivator's spiritual energy, and without an established foundation, one's spiritual energy wouldn't be enough to sustain flight. Flying ships, on the other hand, consumed spiritual stones instead. And since Mo Tian Liao still had his divine soul, he could control it. Crossing the arched bridge, he made a beeline for the blessed sanctum of 10,000 scrolls. The blessed sanctum featured a myriad of rocky mountains stacked like row after row of bamboo slips. A 9-story pagoda towered among them, with black gold for walls and crystal for roofs. It was a magnificent sight. With a disciple's jade token and several spiritual stones for the admission fee, one could enter and consult the texts. The gatekeeper accepted Mo Tian Liao's spiritual stones and made sure he was aware of the rules. Disciples at the chi refining stage may only view materials on the first floor. Do not go upstairs. Remember that. Mo Tian Liao nodded and went in with his cat. The first floor was mostly a depository of paper books, most of which contained basic knowledge on cultivation. Many of the inner disciples were browsing through them. After all, they had to study on their own without the guidance of a master, and the seniors who taught techniques didn't have the patience to run through everything with them. Mo Tian Liao glanced around. These books were too basic to be of much help to him, so he made his way to the second floor, a book repository meant for cultivators at the foundation establishment stage. No one was standing guard, as the books here were of little use to chi refining cultivators. Mo Tian Liao ignored this as well and continued upward. Between the second and third floors was a protective barrier designed to detect divine souls. Those without divine souls couldn't get through, a measure intended to protect the low level disciples. Jade slips recorded using divine sense couldn't be viewed by cultivators without a divine soul either. Anyone trying to force their way into one of those documents would damage their soul. Mo Tian Liao walked through it unimpeded. He pressed his forehead against the long piece of jade at the stairway and instantly got an overview of the location of every book at a glance. It didn't take long at all for him to find the record on divine trees. Picking up the aged jade slip, he pressed it against the center of his forehead. Divine trees were different from spiritual trees. They were trees that had survived since ancient times, and it was possible each was the only one of its kind in existence. Spiritual trees, on the other hand, were trees of varying ages that were useful to cultivators and could be cultivated. Currently, fewer than 20 types of divine trees still existed in Taishuan. I mean, with the rate he's going, chopping down spiritual trees, like, I don't know if that number's going to stay current. The cat wiggled out of Mo Tian Liao's arms and climbed up a rack that held rows of neatly arranged jade slips. Then he swiped all the jade slips off with a paw and swished his tail in amusement. 38. Oh, come on. It doesn't like writing against the side. The ink starts getting spotty. Oh, yeah, that would be another count for the petty. Thank you. So petty is sitting at 17. By the time Mo Tian Liao finished reading and opened his eyes, the rack in front of him was a complete mess, and his feline lordship was perched smugly on the highest shelf, licking his paw. For a long moment, Mo Tian Liao stared at him, too stunned to speak. What happened here? A slightly rotund core formation cultivator walked over. Even though his eyes were wide in surprise and he looked a little angry, he was still speaking slowly. These jade slips each have a designated spot. How could you mess them up like this? Mo Tian Liao stood up, quickly trying to think of a way to talk his way out of this. Wow! The furball bound down and shoved off another row of jade slips right in the cultivator's face. Both Mo Tian Liao and the cultivator gaped at the cat in wordless silence. Once he'd had his fun, he sprang onto Mo Tian Liao's shoulder and swished his tail. Alright, that's another petty, and that's definitely another cat swipe. So we're at 39 and 18. The rotund cultivator collected himself and smiled. I'm Yuan Hai, the chief disciple under the tutelage of Xuanji Zhenren. You must be Qingtong's Shishu's youngest disciple. Greetings, Yuan Hai Shixiang. Mo Tian Liao quickly bowed. I apologize for my cat's misbehavior. Oh, no worries. Yuan Hai waved away his apology and ambled over to the rack to organize the jade slips. Leave this to me. You should go down now. You might get in trouble if someone were to see you on the third floor. Thank you, Chixiang. Mo Tianliao didn't know why Yuan Hai was being so nice to him, but he was glad not to have to stay and clean up. Without any further formalities, he picked up the cat and prepared to leave. By the way, which of the disciples are skilled in elixir concocting? There's something I'd like to get their advice on. At the last banquet, Yan Li had told him he could ask his fellow seniors if he was too embarrassed to ask his master. Having different masters didn't mean they couldn't freely communicate and exchange knowledge. Yuan Hai glanced at the cat in Mo Tianliao's arms. Slowly tucking his hands together in his sleeves, he smiled. You can look for Hua Qing. He's an elixirist. Hua Qing. Mo Tianliao recalled the flamboyantly dressed senior he'd met at the birthday celebration. The corner of his mouth twitched, though he still cupped his hands in thanks before he left. The records on the undying tree were limited. They only stated that this divine tree possessed regenerative powers. As for how to use this power, no one knew. After all, no one had ever been a divine tree before. To test this regenerative power, Mo Tianliao would have to find some spiritual herbs to experiment on, and if he wanted to find someone with a good supply of spiritual herbs, of course, he should turn to an elixirist. Hua Cheng, who was over at his apothecary grinding powder, sneezed. Choo! He rubbed his nose, feeling as if someone was plotting against him. Nothing would befall him today, would it? Mini extra. Papa, you're acting like it's a bad thing for me to pay you a visit. Hua Cheng, nothing could be worse. Papa flashes claws. Say that again. Hua Cheng, it's truly an honor to have you grace me with your presence. I'm so happy I'm going to fate. Oh, goodness. All right, we've got one more chapter for tonight. Okay. Let's see. 147.30. Okay. Chapter 24, Exotic Plants. Mo Tianliao carried the cat out of the book repository and frowned. It seemed like the first generation disciples who could see spirit beasts had all seen Pawpaw, but none of them found it strange to see him carrying a spirit beast around. Then again, he would expect no less of a major sect like this, which boasted a huge supply of both money and spirit beasts. Looking down at the little fluff ball playing with his paws, he smiled. At least Pawpaw had been treated well at the sect all these years. He hadn't been locked up in a cage or forced into a blood pact. He supposed that was to be expected. Most of the cultivators preferred ferocious spirit beasts that could assist them in battle. Imagine if one of them acquired a feline lordship instead. Just imagine! Hua Qing's apothecary was in Wu Shuan Sanctum. Mo Tianliao entered with his personal disciple Jade Token. He heard the sound of water as soon as he crossed the bridge, where he was greeted by a vast aquamarine lake. Zigzagging bridges forged of black crystal intersected from various directions across the lake's surface. In the center stood the main palace of Wu Shuan Sanctum, where Xuanji Zhenren lived. Yeah, I don't know. His feline lordship seems pretty ferocious. I agree. Mo Tianliao took the cat into his robe and grabbed a passing second-generation disciple to ask for directions. The apothecary's over that way. Let me take you there. The disciple showed Mo Tianliao to a small valley in the east. Sword riding was prohibited within the three sanctums, so they both meandered their way across the dizzying zigzag bridges. Truffle. Yes, size doesn't matter. That is correct. Splash! The shell of a huge turtle broke the lake's surface. Mo Tian Liao whipped his head around to look, but the shell had already resubmerged. Is this lake for raising spirit beasts? Mo Tian Liao was surprised they'd so casually put the spirit beasts. Mo Tian Liao was surprised they'd so casually put the spirit beasts on display to the second generation disciples and ordinary inner disciples. Oh, no, just this one. The disciple smiled sheepishly. That's the Sanctum Master's spirit beast. He doesn't like appearing in public, and he usually only shows half a shell at most. He's harmless. They crossed the lake to a clear stream flowing from a mountain ravine with a row of round stones in the middle of the water. The disciple said this was as far as he could escort him and told him to follow the stones upstream to the valley. So yeah, I bet the spirit beast of the Sanctum Master's spirit beast. I wonder, have they been seen together with the Sanctum Master? Because I'm sensing a theme. The valley was quiet. Surprised. There were spiritual herbs or trees there, only a dizzying array of flowers in a riot of colors. Even though winter was just around the corner, this valley was still as warm as it had been in spring, with blossoms in full bloom everywhere. At the end of the valley stood a thatched cottage with wisps of smoke occasionally rising from its chimney. At first glance, it looked like a farming household in the mortal world. Bzzz. An invisible barrier blocked Mo Tianliao's path forward. A colorful figure darted out of the thatched cottage and flitted across the flowers like a dragonfly skimming water, swiftly reaching Mo Tianliao. Look who we have here! Mo Shidi, what brings you here? The figure waved his hand to remove the barrier and let Mo Tianliao in. Sorry to impose, Mo Tianliao said. Prince assaulted him. Yeah, no, I agree, Ruby. I guess these sect elders are spirit beasts. The cat in his arms sneezed and poked his head out of the collar, looking around before sneezing again. The bright smile on Hua Qing's face froze the moment he saw the white cat. No need to stand on ceremony. He wasn't concocting elixirs today, just processing some materials in his elixir furnace. After inviting Mo Tianliao to take a seat, Hua Qing removed the materials from the furnace and placed them on the table to crush. The heated material released a black liquid with a sweet fragrance. Mo Tianliao frowned. Although he was no expert in concocting elixirs, he could tell this liquid was poisonous. It certainly didn't look like something needed for concocting elixirs. Know what this is? Hua Qing tipped some pills on the table, soaking them in the black juice. The red pills instantly turned dark green. This is fun stuff. Once you eat it, you'll grow green fur. Grow green fur? This is my birthday gift for my Shixiang. Hua Qing smugly placed the pills in 3 bottles and handed Mo Tianliao one. Here, one for you. Mo Tianliao's lips twitched. Why in the world would he need a pill that would give him green fur? Meow! The cat jumped out of Mo Tianliao's arms and latched onto the hem of Hua Qing's colorful robe. Hua Qing immediately started hopping anxiously. Shidi, can you take the cat away? That's technically a cat swipe, so we're at 40. And part of me feels like he's being petty because he got a gift. But I'm not 100% sure. Mo Tianliao raised an eyebrow, surprised the senior was afraid of cats. Shixiang, I'd like to see the spiritual herb garden. Oh, that? You'll need to look for Bai Luo. I only have elixirs here. Take him away. Hua Qing was on the verge of tears. As it turned out, Hua Qing focused solely on the act of concocting elixirs itself. All the spiritual herbs and trees in the sect fell under the jurisdiction of one Bai Luo, a disciple under the tutelage of the sect leader. If you needed any spiritual herbs for concocting elixirs, Hua Qing would just go to Bai Luo. Yeah. Okay. So that makes it 19 for Petty. Astonished at his reaction, Mo Tianliao picked up the cat and stroked his fur. Just then, another buzz sounded from the array in the valley. Hua Qing quickly fled to let the visitor in. Mo Tianliao quickly hid the cat back in his robes. The visitor was a familiar face. The very same heaven attribute young man who joined the sect on the same day as Mo Tianliao and been taken under Xuanji Zenren's wing. Mo Tianliao remembered his name was Cheng Shi. Cheng Shi. Cheng Shi. This is one of the dumbest decisions of the sect, honestly. Yeah. Shizun sent me to fetch something, Cheng Shi said with a docile smile as he followed behind Hua Qing, addressing him sweetly as Second Shixian. But then he saw Mo Tianliao and his expression fell. He lifted his chin slightly. This annoying dual attribute trash again. Cheng Shi pursed his lips, fully intending on ignoring Mo Tianliao, putting Bai Luo in charge of the garden. Hua Qing didn't try to keep him. He was only too glad for him to leave. Oh, wait. Of course, Mo Tianliao noticed the young man's contempt. Pretty funny. He casually lifted the bottle in his hand and said to Hua Qing, "Thank you for the pills. I'll take my leave then." Oh. I'm not sure how it's a dumb decision yet, putting Bai Luo in charge of the garden, but I'm sure we're about to find out. Hua Qing didn't try to keep him. He was only too glad for him to leave. Cheng Shi, however, clenched his fists at the sight of this celadon bottle. He tugged at Hua Qing's sleeve. Shixian, how about you give pills to people from another realm, but not me? How could you give pills to people from another realm, but not to me? Hua Qing, who had his back to Cheng Shi, rolled his eyes, but he plastered on a smile and turned back to hand him a bottle. If you want, take some. Have fun. Cheng Shi was delighted. Hua Qing was famous among the Orthodox sects as the flaming flower elixirist, and his elixirs were highly sought after. Every one of his creations was extraordinary, even the ones he concocted impulsively. To Cheng Shi, who was still at the chi refining stage, this was a valuable treasure. He left practically skipping with both the item his master had sent him for and the precious pill his senior had given him. Having nothing to show for his busy day, and seeing as the sun was setting already, Mo Tianliao decided to return to Qingming Palace and look for Bai Luo tomorrow. He didn't see any sign of his master, and the cat in his arms jumped down and ran off, refusing to sleep with him. So he reluctantly returned to his own courtyard alone. Phrasing. Several disciples of the Chamber of Administrative Affairs were waiting for him at the entrance. Mo Tianliao frowned. Your Shifu is back, so there's no need to come to me about these matters anymore. The disciples exchanged looks. Shifu said you're doing a better job than he is, one of them said. So he's washing his hands of these matters. Meng Hu had been thrilled when he found out that his junior had done an efficient job of managing all the routine affairs over the past few months, and no less effectively than Yan Li at that. Finally free from losing fur over these trivial matters day after day, he'd insisted on continuing to entrust this important job to his junior. And I did not miss the reference to fur and not hair. Meanwhile, the idling senior himself went to Qingming Palace to look for their master. The inner chamber was brightly lit, offering a clear view of the furnishings within. Thick white cushions covered the floor. The Snow-White Cat was lounging lazily in the center, where he almost blended in with the cushions. Without his exceptionally keen eyesight, Meng Hu would have missed him. He took off his shoes and threw himself down before the cat. "Greetings, Shizun!" The cat lazily opened his eyes and yawned. Meng Hu scratched his head and rolled over. Yellow light flashed, and a tiger about 5.5 feet long with bright orange fur appeared on the soft cushions. "Shizun, let's roll around." Ignoring this silly suggestion, Paw Paw stretched lazily before jumping onto the tiger's head. The weather had been a little cold lately. It'd be warmer sleeping on a tiger skin rug. The tiger lay obediently still, not daring to move, with a little fur ball on his head. "Shizun, Shidi doesn't seem to be a spirit cultivator, but he isn't human either." Yep, he's a tiger. Love how we all were like, he's such dog-coded, and it's like, he's a tiger. Jing Tong hummed in acknowledgement and swished his tail. "He's pretty good at managing the routine affairs, not at all like a newcomer to the sect." The tiger sprawled on the ground so flat he looked like a real tiger rug from afar. When he didn't get a response, Meng Hu twitched his ears. Feeling the even breathing on his head, he wisely shut up and spent the entire night sprawled out like that, serving as his master's fur rug. Using your student as a heating pad is probably super petty. Yeah, 20 petty. The next day, Mo Tian Liao still couldn't find his cat, so he went to look for Bai Luo on his own. Most of the sect's spiritual herbs were planted in the blessed sanctum of 100 herbs. New disciples with the wood attribute would sometimes be assigned here to look after these spiritual herbs. The blessed sanctuary of 100 herbs was divided into several zones. The outer areas contained regular spiritual herbs that ordinary disciples could tend to, while the inner area contained rare spiritual herbs and trees that required supervision by the specialized inner disciples. As for the innermost medicinal garden, only first-generation personal disciples and the 3 sanctum masters had access. Gracing the medicinal garden were several thousand-year-old trees that provided shade, as well as countless exotic flowers and plants. Because of the abundance of spiritual energy, they occasionally emitted specks of spiritual glow. It was a beautiful sight. Bai Luo, dressed in a white, form-fitting outfit, was squatting on the flower path, looking in concern at a spiritual herb. This spiritual herb was shaped like a sword, with perfectly straight stems, except it had no leaves. Or more precisely, the leaf stalks were bare. The leaves had been eaten, every single one. "You're in trouble again," an annoying voice said from behind him. Bai Luo looked back to see a gloating Zemo. Zemo bound over and shook his head. "How many times have I told you?" He clicked his tongue. "Show some restraint even if you're hungry. How can it survive with all its leaves eaten off?" Bai Luo glared at him and said nothing. Why am I getting... I'm getting sloth. But it's probably something like a deer or something like that. "Come on, have a chicken drumstick." Zemo pulled out a roasted chicken from his sleeve. "This is Shizen's favorite sword leaf grass. He's going to eat you up for ruining it. Here, be a good bunny and have some meat. Eat your fill before you pass out." Oh, I guess he's a bunny. Bai Luo clenched his fists, driven beyond the limit of his endurance. He smacked the drumstick away, grabbed Zemo by the collar, threw him over his shoulder to the ground, and followed up with a punch. "Bai Luo, how dare you? I'm your Shixian." "So?" "Ow, ow, ow, ow!" When Mo Tian Liao entered, he saw one of his seniors straddling another senior, the latter struggling and panting heavily. The two in question, sensing someone's presence, halted mid-tussle and looked back stiffly, frozen in place, with the one on top pinning the one below by the wrists and the one below pushing against the chest of the one above. "Please continue, gentlemen. I'll come back another day." Mo Tian Liao turned to go back the way he came. Mini extra woodcutter. See no evil. I'm leaving. Bye, Luo and Zemo. Chotomate! It's not what you think! And yes, remember what I said about this book having a destructo bun? I do now. And I also think that offering a chicken drumstick to a bunny is kind of petty. So I'm going to mark it down as petty. So we are at 21 for petty. Oh my goodness, this pen. And we are also at the end of our chapter. So that is it for tonight. I hope you all enjoyed. I am still really enjoying this series. It's a lot of fun. Some parts seem kind of random, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it connects. I am enjoying finding out like everyone's apparently an animal. Not the chotomate. Chotomate! Oh. And also the poor timing or wonderful timing in this situation. But yes. I hope you all enjoyed tonight. I know I am, and I did. Yeah, no. I also am really liking the tone of this story, Ruby. But yes. Normal time Thursday, and then we will have the card opening stream on Sunday at 8 CST, so the same time as normal. Yeah. I also like that this is a lot more comedic, a lot more lighthearted. We've kind of been doing series that are not like dark, but they get to some dark places, so having this where it's more comedic based is fun. But yeah. I'm glad everyone's enjoying it. But yeah. Have a good night, everyone. I will see you on Thursday. To everyone watching later, I hope you also enjoyed, and I will see you maybe next time. Good night. And of course,